Today we find out if meta strategies in solo runs can match up with the most broken tactics ever to be seen in a solo challenge. We're gonna use two Pikachus, one that's gonna use the meta, one that's gonna use completely broken tactics, and we're gonna see which one beats the game faster. So we have them running side by side. We're naming the meta Pikachu Sparky after Red's Pikachu from the anime, and our broken Pikachu, which is gonna use moves like Double Team, is gonna be named Pikachu. So let's see how this goes. They're both starting off here in Professor Oak's lab, and it's time to fight Rival 1, where the strategies are basically the same. They're going to use Thundershock. Hey, what a concept. Now, you might have noticed that both of these Pikachus know Surf. What gives? Well, Surf was actually part of the competitive meta in Gen 1. It was used in the Little Cup set of Pikachu in order to check threats like Rhyhorn. And because of the fact that it answers such a huge gaping hole in Pikachu's learn set, we're going to go ahead and use it here, and it's going to give the meta Pikachu at least a fighting chance in this one. Because we're going to have a move to use on Brock, a move to use on Giovanni, a move to use on the Onix on Bruno's team, and best of all, something to use on the final champion's Sandslash. So both of these Pikachus are going to start making their way through Viridian Forest, and this is not a minimum battles challenge. We can beat the game on minimum battles with a Pikachu, and it's actually possible at level 57, but it's really not consistent. We're always in range to be one-hit KO'd by the Sandslash, so both of these Pikachus are basically going to take the easy fights that they can as they go through the game, especially here in the early game, to make sure that this section is completely consistent. So at this point, the strategy is to fight all of the bug catchers. They're just easy experience. They have almost zero chance of ever knocking us out. And because of that, hey, we'll just take the free levels, get to Brock at a decent level, and knock him out with Surf. So we can see that both are making their way through. There are slight differences in time just because one of the Pikachus has gotten to the final bug catcher faster, but that's really just the effect of bumping into walls, slight inaccuracies in routing through Viridian Forest. They're both going to get to Brock at basically the same time. Really seconds of difference. One thing that we are going to do is take on the Lightyear's junior trainer, however, because at this level, Surf is a one-hit KO on both of his Pokemon, so it's just free experience. Here, we can see that the double team broken Pikachu is already up against Brock, but it lost the first time, and I actually had an inaccuracy by not saving just before Brock, so we had to retake on the junior trainer. So both of these runs are at Brock at exactly the same time, basically doing exactly the same thing. They've both hit level 11, and they're going to level up to level 12 off the Onix. So this is completely neck and neck in the early game. And we would expect that. We haven't learned Double Team yet. We don't get Double Team till level 15. So here we're going to take on the Lass with two Pidgeys because, hey, Thundershock, easy game. And we're going to route through the bug catchers in this section. Usually after youngster Joey, I would fight the Lass that has a Rattata and an Ekans because it gives less experience and it kind of fits the minimum battles theme of this channel more, but not in this case. That battle is harder, plus it doesn't give as much experience as the bug catcher if we just take the lower route here. We're also going to fight the youngster that has a Spearow because it will be easy experience. So both of them are taking out the bug catcher right now, where we can just spam anything against the Kakuna and Metapod and Weedle and Caterpie. It really doesn't matter. And now both of them are taking down the level 14 Spearow. It's an absolute cakewalk. Here, we're just going to heal up, make our way over to the final bug catcher, and we'll be on our way into the Mount Moon. So we can see that the Double Team Pikachu is finally reaching level 15 and getting access to Double Team, which should give it some advantage, but really at this point, there's not really too much need to fight that many extra battles, and most of the battles aren't really that tough. The Double Team Pikachu will, however, lose a little bit of time by grabbing items. And that's because we're not just banning Double Team in this run. No, when we talk about broken moves, we're talking about any TM that is learnable by all Pokemon, which includes things like Substitute. You see, Substitute we've already used on this channel to complete the game at level 5 with a single Gyarados, start to finish. And if that move allows a level 5 Pokemon to beat the entire game, well then it has to be classified as broken, the same as Double Team. Other moves that are also going to be classified as broken will be things like Toxic, things like Bide, because we've just seen how broken they are. Rest also fits that category. So here we can see that both of these Pikachus are making decent time through Mount Moon, but here's another little case where I made a small mistake. The Meta Pikachu forgot to pick up TM1 and get Mega Punch. This is kind of offsetting the fact that I failed to save just before Brock with the Double Team Pikachu, so it's just kind of putting them on the same level. Of course, we could go back again and repeat this test over and over again with optimizations. Now it's worth noting as we're getting close to Jesse and James, that when I tried this on 0 DVs in minimum battles, Pikachu actually doesn't reach level 15 by the time it reaches Jesse and James. So the Double Team Pikachu actually did need to get some extra levels before this fight. At level 14, it's really inconsistent. But with Double Team, we're absolutely crushing the team, and the Double Team Pikachu makes it out first. But we could also argue that that's probably because the Meta Pikachu had to go back for TM1 to get Mega Punch. Here, we can see that they're both basically making the same time with only very slight differences. This gameplay is at 10 times speed, but really not that different. We're gonna fight all of the trainers in Cerulean Gym since they're all water types and we have Thundershock. It should make this a very easy level up spot. And once we get to Misty, well, let's just try her at her current level. I mean, we've got Thundershock, and the Double Team Pikachu hopefully can set up Double Team and get through this. Takes down Staryu just fine, and we level up enough to get Slam, but we've got Mega Punch, so who needs it? I'm using Mega Punch right now because of badge boosts, but we actually get taken out by a Bubble Beam. So now we can see that both Pikachus are at the same point, and it's really just a matter of which one's going to get through first. Well, Meta Pikachu decided to go back to the Pokemon Center to recover PP, and basically, hey, our Double Team Pikachu got knocked out, so they're in the same place. Meta Pikachu's going to try to use Paralysis with Thunder Wave in order to help it get through this fight. So which one's getting through first? Well, Meta Pikachu's on Starmie, it's paralyzed it, and it gets the luck to get through at the same time that Double Team Pikachu takes a lucky Bubble Beam and gets knocked out. So Double Team Pikachu, even with its evasion, even with 6 Double Teams set up, was not able to get through this fight as fast as the Meta Strat. So now Sparky, our Meta Pikachu, is on to Rival 2 at the same time that our Pikachu, the Double Team Pikachu, just finally beat Misty. So taking down Rival 2, really not hard because of Surf. We have that to one-shot the Sandshrew, and it's just a matter of using Thundershock or Mega Punch on everything else. So here, finally, Double Team Pikachu gets there, it knocks out the Spearow quickly, it knocks out the Sandshrew quickly, and now we can start just whittling down the rest of his Pokemon. This is a very consistent battle at this point, and neither Pikachu should really have too much trouble going north to Bill's house. It's worth noting at this point that this is not my first run with these two strategies. I did test runs for each of them, getting all the way to the champion, to see exactly what levels and what kind of strategies would work. So I started off by doing a 0 DVs minimum battles run, as I typically do on this channel, and found that while it was possible to do that, it took 2 hours and 45 minutes. And we ended up having to use this ridiculous strategy where we used Toxic and Leech Seed to beat the champion. And then in both of the test runs, I found that I got to the champion at too low of a level. You see, the Meta Pikachu has to reach the point where it can tank at least one Earthquake from the Sandslash, or the level at which it can one-hit KO the Sandslash with Surf. Because if it can't do either of those things, it's GG, the run is over at that point. And for the Double Team Pikachu, while it can rely on luck to be able to get through that fight, it's not as simple as just take down the Sandslash and have a guaranteed win. No, in fact, a lot of the Pokemon there can still do decent damage to us. I had a lot of runs where I would keep getting to the champion's starter, which in that test run was a Jolteon, and getting knocked out by it. So both of these Pikachus are gonna take any easy fights that they can find here in this section of the game to get to as high a level as possible. We can see that the Meta Pikachu has pulled ahead just a little bit based on the fact that it was able to beat the rival first, and it's getting through most of these fights just a little ahead. So we're just gonna have to see how it goes, but Surf is a godsend. Surf makes these hikers absolute cakewalks because whenever we fight them, we can just use Surf to one-shot any of their rock-type Pokemon. We can also fight the youngster with a Slowpoke because we have a super effective Thundershock. These are fights that I never usually take because I'm so worried about minimum battles, but in this case, it makes sense. When you're trying to finish the game as fast as possible, you may as well take the easiest experience possible. And we really don't want to lose with either of these Pikachus because you guys in the community voted for a punishment for the Pikachu that loses this race. And I just have to say, man, some of those ideas were absolutely dark. Because the second most voted idea was that the Pikachu would be forced to evolve into a Raichu, which, did you guys even watch the anime as kids? Like Pikachu in that episode against Lieutenant Surge, where it was tossing and turning at night, wondering if it should evolve to help Ash win the battle. Man, the feels. But we're gonna do that for our Pikachu. Now you might be saying, dude, but why aren't you gonna do our number one choice to fight Professor Oak? Come on, guys. This is RBY Pokemon Challenges. Fighting Professor Oak isn't a punishment. That's a reward. We're gonna let the winner fight Professor Oak, and we're gonna have the loser evolve into a Raichu, and then we're gonna take it a step further by depositing it into the daycare for eternity. That's right, folks. We may have just passed the new home of our future Raichu. And we might just have to check in on him sometimes and see, how's Raichu doing? So here in the next section, we're gonna fight some more optional battles, especially against some of these bug catchers, because they're very, very easy. Even the Butterfree, it's not too bad. We can take it down with Thundershock. It does put the Double Team Pikachu to sleep for a long time though, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get knocked down. We managed to get through. We can also fight the Junior Trainer that has a Cubone, very easy fight. So once we get through this section, we have to think about a few other things, because this is not a minimum battles challenge, it's a speed challenge. And we have to think about our moveset, and what kind of moves will help our Pikachus the most. Well, one move that stands out above all else, and the one that I basically can never get on minimum battles runs, is going to be Body Slam. Body Slam is massive because it gives us a very strong physical move that can also paralyze our opponents. And for our Pikachu that doesn't know Thunder Wave, that's going to be huge. It's also 100% accurate, so it's way better than Mega Punch. So our Meta Pikachu is already on the SSN, knocking out a bunch of Pokemon. Basically, we're just going to take advantage of all of the Sailors since they give us really easy free wins. And both of our Pikachus already know Thunderbolt just from level up, so hey, this is easy. It's almost looking like I'm pretty much doing the same thing with both of these Pikachus at this point, but that's very much intentional. It's intentional because of the fact that at this point, this is really the best routing. And for our broken Pikachu, we also want to get rest because rest could be super useful. So we're just going to keep grinding out the easy experience. And then once we get all of these items that are useful to us, we're going to finally make our way over to Rival 3. I kept forgetting which room has Body Slam in it because I just always skip all of the rooms on the first floor of the SSN. It's just never useful to me. I also completely forgot that there's another rare candy on here, but I'm glad that I went into every room and just started checking, because if I hadn't, I would have just skipped a free level up just based on that. So here we can see Meta Pikachu is all the way at Rival 3, and it's a one-hit KO fest, even the Sandshrew, because we have Surf and we're over-leveled at this point. It's perfectly easy to just knock all of these Pokemon out. So here, our Meta Pikachu is gonna just finish up the last couple of easy fights here and start making its way over to Lieutenant Surge. At the same time, Double Team Pikachu's running a little bit behind, but it's because it went east of Viridian City to take a couple of those easy fights against the Gamblers. And it's basically just running in the same vein where it's already learned Body Slam and it's gonna just get the easy items and make its way over to Rival 3 from now. This is the point where I noticed that I didn't get all of the items with the Meta Pikachu, so we're backtracking a little bit. They're basically looking to be in exactly the same place. And hey, that's fine. You know, we just check every room and we can fight this old man and just knock out his fire-type Pokemon with Surf. It's super easy. I decided to even take on the Jigglypuff trainer because she's not that hard either. Especially with Body Slam, Thunderbolt doesn't matter. We're super strong at this point. So our Meta Pikachu has basically finished, and at the same time, our Double Team Pikachu is just enjoying the one-shot fest against Rival 3. Here, it actually turns out to be a 2-hit KO on the Eevee, but that is what it is. Still an easy fight, and we can get off of this boat and just move on to Lieutenant Surge. So they're both basically getting off the boat at the same time, and it's time for our Meta Pikachu to go fight all of the easy trainers east of Viridian City, at the same time as our Double Team Pikachu tries to make its way through Lieutenant Surge's gym. It's always really nice in Pokemon Yellow that we get a Charmander for free, because we have a dig and cut user every time without having to waste any time trying to fight wild Pokemon. You may have noticed there are no wild Pokemon at this point. That's intentional. I didn't really want to waste the time having to get repels and having more wild encounters for one Pikachu than another Pikachu, and one Pikachu runs out of money and blah 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 blah. We really just want to focus in on the strategies, so we're going to eliminate as many other random bits of luck as we can. Our Double Team Pikachu has now made it to Lieutenant Surge. We're going to set up Double Team both for evasion and for badge boosts. And with the badge boosts in, it's a 2-hit KO with Body Slam. So that was easy. Now we have to see if we can repeat the same thing with our Meta Pikachu. Because Meta Pikachu doesn't get badge boosts in its attack, so it's probably going to be a 3-hit KO here. Maybe 4 hits, who knows. So we're going to go ahead and make our way into the gym at the same time as our Double Team Pikachu is digging its way back to Cerulean City. The trash can puzzle really isn't that hard. It's just a little bit time consuming, but I was checking one of the speedrunning websites just to double check exactly which trash cans correspond with each other. It can always be the top left trash can, but when we get the bottom left, it's either the top left or it's the trash can immediately to the right. So here we get to Lieutenant Surge. We're going to set up Thunder Wave to paralyze it. Now try to go into Body Slam. That first attempt did not work. We got knocked out. Here we're going to set up Thunder Wave again. Now it's fully paralyzed. It is a 3-hit KO and we knock it out. So both of these Pikachus are basically in the same place. They're going to do a little bit of housekeeping with selling items and making sure that they get the bike voucher and get the bike. But Pikachu is already making its way over to Rock Tunnel. And the lass here can be a little bit of a troll because she uses so many status ailments, and if she gets paralysis and starts using wrap, it can be really hard. Fortunately, with badge boosts, body slam is more than enough to take her down, and we can take on these hikers because, again, free, easy experience. And you might be saying, well, isn't it wasting a lot of time? Like, couldn't you be getting so much more of a time advantage with the double team Pikachu at this point? We could, but even this Pikachu's gonna need a little bit more than minimum battles in order to make the end game manageable. We probably can't win this with a 2 hour and 45 minute run like we did on the minimum battles test run. So we're gonna take down all of these hikers. As long as they're 1-hit KOs or 2-hit KOs, I feel pretty good about that. And I decide to even take on the last lass with her Meowth because one Thunderbolt knocks her out. So we are getting just a little ahead. Our Sparky is running just behind though. You could be forgiven for thinking that these are nearly 2 identical runs at this point. Double Team doesn't seem to be making any major impact. That could all be coming to a change though after we get to Celadon City, but for now, we're just gonna make our way through the rock tunnel as quickly and efficiently as possible, and we can even fight all of the extra Pokemaniacs because they have really easy Pokemon. Really, this is the part where I always feel like if you have a water type Pokemon or a grass type Pokemon, you can get so many easy levels in this section of the game. All of these hikers, if you can 1-hit or 2-hit KO all of their Pokemon, are just absolute cakewalks. So when we do something like a Bulbasaur run, this is the place to really grind up and get some extra levels very, very easily before you hit the middle game. It also goes to show just how much Surf really helps a Pikachu, because usually a Pikachu wouldn't stand much of a chance against all of these trainers at all. And here we are at the self-destruct hiker, and he's just a 1-hit KO fest. Double Team Pikachu runs out of PP though, so we switch to Double Team and just let these Pokemon self-destruct and miss. And hey, if you can learn Double Team or Minimize before him, absolute cakewalk. Now we can move on through the rest of the trainers in this area where we don't need Surf, because we can just use Thunderbolt and Body Slam to take them down. And we're massively over leveled, but that's okay. Level 36 is perfectly fine for where we're at. Now I decided we're gonna go ahead and skip Rival 4 initially for speed. We could do a lot of different routings here, but it's probably better not to go all the way into the Pokemon Tower and then just have to come straight back out. We can see that our Meta Pikachu, Sparky, is finishing up the last Pokemaniac and making its way out of the rock tunnel at this point, at the same time as our Double Team Pikachu is in the underground tunnel, making its way to Celadon City. But now we're finally coming up on the section of the game where maybe it makes sense for these 2 Pikachus to do a slightly different routing. Because the Pikachu that knows Double Team, Pikachu, is probably going to be able to fight Erica immediately. It's going to be able to use Double Team both to get badge boosts in attack, meaning it can do more damage to all of her Pokemon, and it's going to be able to use its increased evasiveness to avoid moves like Razor Leaf, Mega Drain, and Petal Dance. So it really makes sense to go and take that fight pretty quickly. On the other hand, Sparky is not really going to do that well in that fight, because it's going to be at the mercy of her Pokemon's moves, possibly being put to sleep, possibly being paralyzed, plus taking moves like Mega Drain. Mega Drain's pretty strong at this point in the game. We could get knocked out pretty easily if we're just trying to use a meta-type strat. So we'd probably be better off just going through the Rocket timeline, fighting all of the Rockets, using Thunderbolt, using Surf to get through Giovanni. That's my game plan going into this. Now we do turn on wild Pokemon just here in order to get ourselves a flying type that we can use to get fly and move around very quickly and efficiently. This is also the only place where I allow myself to set a save state while I'm in a battle with a Pokemon, because it could take way too long to run around trying to find a wild Pokemon and then catch it with a Pokeball, and then it misses, and then we have to go buy more Pokeballs. We're just going to make it easy on both of these Pikachus, save right there when we have the Spearow, throw Pokeballs until we catch it. And with that being done, now both of these Pikachus can just start making their way through their respective parts of the game. So Sparky is going straight to the Rocket game corner, where these Team Rocket members with Thunderbolt are just a one-hit KO fest. It's brilliant. And because the meta Pikachu is going to have to reach a much higher level at the end of the game, it's going to take all of these fights. They're just easy experience. There's no reason to skip any of them. We need every little bit of experience that we can get in this run. As a kid, it always used to just strike me as ridiculous that I was going through and destroying this evil organization with just a bunch of one-hits. Really, did anybody have a hard time against Team Rocket as a kid? I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because for me, I really can't remember a time of reaching Silph and getting bogged down. That was always the easy part of the game that just felt tedious because I just had to fight every single trainer and just destroy them all. But certainly not anything that I ever remember as a challenge. But maybe I was the exception, maybe you guys have some different stories, so share them with me down below. Anyway, getting back to the action, our Double Team Pikachu is now making its way to Erica. And the reason we want to do this is because backtracking to Erica later takes a lot of time. If we can just get her done in one go, then we'll be possibly gaining a lot of time on our Meta Pikachu that's gonna have to backtrack later. Here, going into this fight, it's always hard to just move one tile when you're playing at 10 times speed like I do. So you're just gonna have to forgive me for some of the little inaccuracies. Here we're setting up Double Team on the Tangela, and the idea is that once we get these Double Teams set up, we're going to go into Body Slam. It turns out to be a 3-hit KO, and she uses a Super Potion, but the other Pokemon are 2-hit KOs, they can't hit us, and there we go. Pikachu has completely destroyed the 4th gym. So now they're both going to be in the Rocket game corner, since that is the required section of the game. But while Sparky is fighting every single Rocket to get as much experience as possible, Pikachu's initial plan is just to go in, grab the items that we might be able to sell for decent amounts of money, but otherwise take as few battles in here as possible. We're already over leveled at this point, and the fact that we have Double Team to help us out is really going to make this pretty trivial. So the only extra fight we take is the one in order to get the Double Edge TM, because that could be useful later on. So here, Sparky is fighting Team Rocket, and it's a one-hit KO fest with Thunderbolt, meaning that we can make our way now to Giovanni, and Giovanni's not going to be that hard. Surf on Onix, Surf on Rhyhorn, and it's going to be a 2-hit KO on the Persian, but that was easy. So we definitely made the easier choice in terms of which battle to take between Erica and Giovanni. So now Sparky's going to make its way over to Lavender Town once we are able to get our HM2 taught to our Spearow, and it should be getting just a little ahead in this section of the game. Hopefully that's enough to make up for the fact that it hasn't beaten Erica yet. At about the same time, Pikachu is going to make its way down to the basement floor and take on Team Rocket, where, again, we have Thunderbolt, we're massively overleveled. This is a one-hit KO fest. Easy. But we're going to pick up the items and then go and fight Giovanni. Giovanni, again, shouldn't be too hard. We just use Surf to take down both of the rock types, and 2 Thunderbolts is enough for the Persian. Done. So we've made it through the Rocket game corner with both of these Pikachus, and Sparky is going to fight Rival 4 right now. Rival 4, we have an answer for everything. Thunderbolt on the Fearow. We can use Body Slam on the Magnemite, Thunderbolt on Shelder, Surf on Sandshrew. Now we've even leveled up enough to learn Thunder at this point. But you might just be noticing that Pikachu's caught up and it's just finished the rival fight in the time that I was thinking about whether or not I should learn Thunder with Sparky. So we learned Thunder, we one-hit KO the Eevee, that's nice, and they're now both making their way through the tower. Here at this point, we're not really having any trouble against these Ghastly because we're so massively over-leveled that we can just knock them out. And really, the only thing that could pose a challenge might be the Marowak. So let's see, as Pikachu makes its way to the top of the tower, if Marowak is actually a trouble or not. Pikachu's one level lower than Sparky right now, so maybe it will be a case where it's trouble. Who knows? Nope, Surf just one-shots it, so there we go. They're both getting to the top of the tower and fighting Jesse and James, where Thunderbolt for Pikachu and Body Slam and Thunder for Sparky make very easy work of these battles, and we get through and save Mr. Fuji. And now we reach another point where it kind of makes sense for these two Pikachus to take a different routing. Because Pikachu has Double Team, meaning it can probably go fight Rival 5 right away. Because as long as we get the accuracy luck, we're going to be able to get through that fight. Whereas Pikachu doesn't have any way to avoid the high damage output of the Sand Slash, so maybe we should go down to Fuchsia City instead. So here, Pikachu is going to fight Rival 5, and it starts off by setting up a bunch of double teams here on the Sand Slash. Once we get our double teams set up, we actually switch into Body Slam once to see if we can paralyze it, and then we go into using Surf, and we skip Thunder on this one. We've already got enough luck in this run, we don't need more. So here we finish setting up our double teams on the Magneton, which means we can outspeed the Kadabra and the final Flareon, and it's an easy first attempt victory. So we made up a ton of time there, and we can see that at the same time, Sparky is down near Fuchsia City fighting random bird keepers to get some extra experience, since they're one-hit KOs with Thunder. Now, Jesse and James are not too difficult, but we can see that our Pikachu has very low health and it got paralyzed by Glare, so we do have to go out and heal up. Now, Sparky, it's gonna really enjoy this route south of Fuchsia City and the routes around Cinnabar Island, because again, there's just tons of water-type Pokemon that we can easily knock out. Our Pikachu, on the other hand, it's just thinking about getting through the game as quickly as possible, so it's on to Giovanni. Here against Giovanni, we're going to start by setting up a bunch of double teams, and hopefully we can survive the damage output of his team. We're using Thunderbolt to take down Persian, now we have Surf to take down the Rhyhorn, and we get a double kick and get knocked out by the Nidoqueen. So we're going to have to try again. More double teams. We're taking Fury Attack that does a lot of damage from this Nidorino, but we set up all of our double teams and we knock it out with Thunderbolt. Now it's 2 Thunderbolts on Persian. We level up, so now we use Surf, and we get knocked out again by the Nidoqueen. It's almost like double team isn't helping us at all in this situation. Even though we've got 6 of them set up and should only be a 25% chance, I was getting really frustrated at this point. Like, come on, twice in a row? So here, the third time's the charm, maybe? Surf on the Rhyhorn. Can we get the Surfs on the Nidoqueen? Yes, we do. And we get through without taking any damage. Yay. So now that Pikachu has finished the Rocket storyline here in Silphco, it's just going to pick up all of the random items, and it's going to take a little bit of time doing that because we want all the money we can in case we need Substitute. There were a couple fights in my minimum battles run where Substitute was the key in order to getting through. So we're just keeping that option on the table. We're going to give up a little bit of time, a little bit of our lead, in order to be able to get those extra items and get that extra money. Now at this same time, Sparky is taking its first attempt at Koga, where Thunder is not a one-hit KO, but we do manage to two-hit the first Venonat. Now we're going for Thunder, and it's a 3-hit KO on the second Venonat, and Body Slam is not enough on the third Venonat. Okay, that didn't look very good. We're going to try this again, and this time I'm just going hard with Body Slam. It seems to be working out better. But basically, we're getting knocked out in this fight pretty consistently. So here I'm really just wondering if maybe I'm taking the wrong tactic, or maybe we should have taken a different routing. So I decide, okay, we fought all the trainers in here. I thought we might be at a high enough level, but maybe not. Maybe we have to reroute. At the same time, Pikachu is taking advantage of all these items that it picked up, selling them for money. We can see the massive 130,000 Poké Dollars that we have. It's still not enough to be able to buy Substitute at this point, but we're getting pretty close. So I decide with Sparky to go and fight more bird keepers near Fuchsia City as a first step in getting some extra levels. None of these trainers are very hard, and I always just skip this entire route because it's not necessary to even go over here. But it's kind of funny that bird Pokemon are the gimmick of this section of the game. Like, you see different sections of the game, they use different types of Pokemon, right? And they start off with bugs in Viridian Forest. That makes perfect sense. Then they go into kind of poison types and start introducing rock types when you get into Mount Moon. And considering that we just came from the ghost type section of the game when we were in Lavender, it's like, why did they decide to go with flying types at this point? Flying type is so bad in Generation 1. It's a little bit ridiculous, but it is kind of nice for our Meta Pikachu, I guess. So now Sparky's going to start making its way over to Saffron City since there's a lot more easy experience to be had inside of Silphco. And at the same time, Pikachu is taking advantage of all of this extra money. We're going to see if we actually need Substitute, but we're going to go and fight Sabrina first. And I decide it's not even worth fighting any of the trainers in her gym. Let's just get to Sabrina herself. Try to use Double Team, get badge boosts on attack, and then use Body Slam to get through this. So here we're setting up our double teams. We're hoping not to take too many accuracy drops. And now we've had a couple, but we one-hit KO'd the Abra, one-hit KO'd the Kadabra. And now can we land the hits on Alakazam? Yes, we can. It's a 2-hit KO. We've just finished another gym with Pikachu. Not even hard. Here, we can see at the same time that Sparky is struggling against Rival 5, even though it's at level 46. One hit from the Sand Slash nearly knocks us out. If it decides to use Slash and gets a critical hit, which most of the time it will, it's nearly enough to knock us out at that point. Here, we finally get the run though, where we get all the way to Flareon, and we get knocked out by Fire Spin. That's ridiculous. So here we one-shot the Sand Slash. Now we're going to go into Thunder on Cloyster. This just isn't working at level 46. Double Team is such a huge advantage. It's ridiculous. So here we managed to take down all of the Pokemon. We get back to Flareon. We finally get the luck to get 2 hits with Surf and knock it out. So Meta Pikachu, Sparky, is running way behind at this point. It's looking like the odds-on favorite to be forced to evolve into Raichu and put in the daycare for eternity. So there's a lot of run left though. Keep in mind, the toughest parts of this entire run are going to be Giovanni in the Elite Four. So Pikachu has made its way down to Koga. It is using Double Team on the first Venonat, and now going into Body Slam on all of his Pokemon to try to knock them out. And this strategy seems to be working pretty well. We switch into Thunderbolt after we run out of PP, and we're all the way on Venomoth. Can we take it down? It's used a bunch of double teams too, but there we go. That's another gym down. Pikachu with Double Team is just crushing this entire game at this point. It can make its way up to the Safari Zone to pick up a bunch more items and get the Surf TM. It's going to do its own thing for a little bit. These are the tedious, boring parts of every single run that I kind of wish I could cut out, honestly. In fact, in my test run, when I was doing this on 0 DVs and minimum battles, well, there wasn't really any point in going to the Safari Zone because we already know Surf. I mean, the only thing that we need to pick up is the gold teeth, and you don't need the gold teeth immediately. You can wait a while to get them, in fact, because you don't need to know strength until you're already on Victory Road. And at this point, I was going through the Safari Zone picking up all of the items, but this was a mistake. It costs 154,000 Poké Dollars to buy enough coins to be able to get the substitute TM from the Rocket Game Corner, but we've already got more than that in our account, so we don't really need to buy any other items in this run. It's just kind of a waste of time. So that was just a mistake on my part and something that probably could have saved us a few minutes, because we could have just grabbed the gold teeth and dug out and been on our way to Blaine and Cinnabar Island. So there's still plenty of room for this run to be further optimized than this. And quite frankly, if I went back and did this again, both of these runs could be improved significantly, because there are probably more efficient places to level than what I'm doing right now with Sparky. And with Pikachu, we often have to go and get rid of items because of the fact that we're picking up so many. I probably could have planned this a little bit better and just picked up the items that would get me to exactly 155,000 Poké Dollars and been just fine. But it's way too early to write off one is a winner and one is a loser. We still haven't gotten to the hardest parts of the game, and it could be that the luck-based strategies catch up with our Pikachu, or it could be that we've just built up such a huge advantage that our Meta Pikachu Sparky's just never going to have a chance to catch up. We're just going to have to see. So we can see that we are picking up everything in the basement of the Pokemon Mansion with Pikachu, and we've got the secret key. It's time to dig out of here and go take on Blaine. At the same time, we can see that Sparky's all the way up to level 50 at this point, and it's probably going to need about 25 more levels in order to be able to get through the champion reliably. There are a lot of places where we can pick up those levels, but really it's going to be here in Silph maybe the routes between Fuchsia and Cinnabar and Pallet Town, and otherwise Victory Road. That's pretty much it. Keep in mind, we still haven't been able to beat Koga yet, so we really have this as our best grinding spot at this point. Now, we're probably strong enough to go and fight Koga at this point though, so really this is just about getting more experience for what we're gonna need in the late game. Now we can see that at the same time, Pikachu has finally made it to Blaine, and the plan is simple. We're gonna set up our double teams right here on the Ninetales. It seems to always get Confuse Ray on me, even though I've got all these double teams set up. I mean, Confuse Ray, I know it's 100% accurate, but still, come on. And we're trying to use Body Slam to take it down. Now we Body Slam and Paralyze Rapidash and easily take it out. Now, I didn't know if Surf or Body Slam would be stronger on Arcanine, but didn't matter. It knocked us out. Even with all the double teams set up, it can still just land a Flamethrower, and there we go. So at this point, I was kind of feeling like, you know what? We might be a little bit under-leveled at this point, and maybe the strategy is to get Substitute, because Substitute would allow us to tank a hit, and as long as we use Substitute, well, he's not going to be able to use Confuse Ray on us. Confusion is blocked by the Substitute, so it's a pretty natural solution to this problem. I was planning to wait to get Substitute until I was ready to go fight Giovanni, where it becomes really, really useful. But we're going to have to backtrack to sell it on anyway. We may as well just take the time to sit here and mash the A button over and over again, trading 1,000 Poké Dollars for 50 coins. Like, when you think about it, the TMs in the Rocket Game Corner are so ridiculously expensive. It's kind of stupid. Like, it's up there with the $1 million bike, which I just never could understand as a kid. I was like, who would pay $1 million for a bike? I'll put it this way. If you would spend $1 million for a bike, That bike seriously needs to be like a Tesla bike that's gonna save the entire Earth from global warming to even justify that. Like, otherwise that would just be so ridiculous. But this is the truest sign of the evil of the Rocket organization. The fact that you can spend 154,000 Poké to get enough coins to get the substitute TM, and then if you decided to take it over and sell it at the Celadon department store, you'd get nothing in return relative to that. It's so ridiculous. Now, at the same time, Sparky is finishing up the last few trainers in Silphco, and basically once it gets through all of these, we're finally going to go up and fight Giovanni, and feel pretty good about it since we're at such a high level. We would expect to just completely crush his team at this point. I'm just making sure that I haven't missed anybody. Am I the only one who finds it weird that this first trainer on the second floor, he has 5 Pokemon and he's actually pretty tough at this point in the game, and yet the trainer who's all the way up on the 11th floor is an absolute cakewalk. You can just basically one-shot all of his unevolved Pokemon. It's like they were trying to just troll kids who were trying to go straight to the top of the building. And at the same time, Pikachu has 69,000 Poké and 6,900 coins. Nice. And we're getting very close to being able to finally get substitute, and that is going to allow us to go back and fight Blaine. So we've gotten the coins now. We're going to go over and get our TM. I almost accidentally bought TM 23. No. So we backed out. We got our substitute TM. We're going to fly back to Cinnabar, and this is the point where it's time to get substitute on our moveset, but what do we forget? Well, we need to decide one of our moves that is basically useless here. Double Team is good, so we replace Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt isn't really needed in this fight. We've got Surf. Surf is super effective, and Thunderbolt's not really useful against Giovanni either. So here we are going to get into this fight, and the strategy is to set up substitute turn 1, now go into our double teams, reset up the substitute if it ever gets knocked out, and hopefully we can get 6 double teams set up. We've got 3 HP remaining, but now we can go into Surf, and it actually turns out Body Slam does more damage because of badge boost, so Body Slam's the way to go. We're all the way to the Arcanine. It uses Reflect, so now we're going to use Surf, and there we go. We get through very, very easily once we have substitute on our learn set. Now, at the same time, Sparky is taking on Koga, and even though we take Toxic, we're all the way to the Venomoth, and we knock it out. So, we are starting to see Sparky reaping the fruits of all of its massive grinding, at the same time that our broken Pikachu is finally going to make its way to Giovanni. Now, Pikachu has a pretty special strategy for Giovanni in mind, because we can learn Mimic. Mimic will enable us to use a strategy that I think is pretty ridiculous, but just might work. Here, we can see that Sparky is going up against Sabrina at this point though, and its strategy is to go straight for Body Slam, just go all in on damage, and it works. At level 56, we take down Sabrina, and we've got another gym done. So we're starting to catch up. We're starting to make up a little bit of that ground. We're going to go down to Cinnabar and try to get through this next section. And hopefully for Sparky, Pikachu will start to lose a little bit of time on some of these tough fights against Giovanni's gym members and Giovanni himself. Now, Sparky is going to fight pretty much all of these swimmers down here near Cinnabar Island, because they're just another easy source of experience, stat experience. As long as we're strong enough to either knock these Pokemon out with Thunder or Body Slam, it's a very easy section to get the extra levels that we're gonna need for the end game. At the same time, Pikachu is taking on the trainers in Giovanni's gym, where Substitute plus Double Team and Body Slam is more than enough to get through all of these fights. And we don't really have a good reason to get Thunderbolt at this point. It's not really effective against anything in here. And now we have to make another decision, because I'm going to use Mimic in order to get through Giovanni, because every single one of his Pokemon knows Earthquake, and Earthquake can one-shot us at this point, I promise you. So we need a strategy to get through all of these Earthquake users, ideally without getting knocked out. So I've just taught Mimic, and now I'm using some PP ups here in order to do something that I think is a little bit ridiculous, but because we have Double Team, I think it's gonna work. So let's get into the fight against Giovanni and see how this strategy actually works. What we're going to do is we're going to start off by setting up some double teams, and hopefully he doesn't knock us out. If he hits us with Dig or Earthquake, it's a one-hit KO. But we set up Substitute, and now we Mimic Fissure. We're going to use Surf to take out the Doug Trio, but now we can spam Fissure over and over again. The Persian kind of trolled me here by using Double Team, so I switched to Surf. But now against Nidoqueen, I'm back to spamming Fissure. We one-shot it. Now, we take a hit from the Nidoking, but we just set up another Substitute, and we one-shot it with Fissure, and it's 2 hits from Surf to knock out the Rhydon. Giovanni is done, and really not as hard as you would have expected, given that Substitute plus Double Team plus the Fissure strat actually makes that a fairly consistent fight. So now Pikachu is moving on to fight Rival 6, and man, Sparky still hasn't even gotten to Blaine yet. And it might just be an insurmountable lead. So here, Pikachu is going to set up its double teams on the Sandslash. Sandslash still doesn't know Earthquake at this point, so we're really worried about Swift and Slash. But here we're going to Mimic Swift since we have Badge Boosts, and we're going to use Swift to take down the Execute. We can use Surf actually here to whittle down the Cloyster because again, Badge Boosts. And now we have a chance to learn Light Screen, but I decided it's not worth it. We're not really defensive. We're not really trying to take hits from opponents. So we're just going to use Surf and Swift. But Swift hits us, and hey, Double Team Pikachu just lost to the Magneton. That's right, folks. In Pokemon Yellow, opponents actually use Swift, meaning that Double Team isn't actually that strong, especially at this point in the game. Here, we're going to try again against the Sandslash to set up Substitute and Double Team in order to get through this section of the fight. And it's kind of trolly how much damage that Sandslash actually does. So here, I'm thinking about how to get through this section of the game. I decided to go for Surf here on Execute, but I decide to just reset once we get poisoned because we're probably just going to lose at that point. So let's try this again. We're all the way down to 2 HP. That's another reset. This just isn't going well for Pikachu. Against Rival 6, he's an absolute troll. So here we're going to try this again. He hits us with a critical hit Swift. He hits us with another Swift. We're trying to keep our Substitute up. This is really, really difficult, honestly. And here I decided to use Mimic on the Execute in order to get access to Leech Seed. And we're all the way down to 1 HP at this point. Let's hope that we can use Leech Seed against Cloyster and maybe get some of our HP back. We're using Surf to whittle it down. It uses Clamp on us, but as long as we can survive, we now once again have a chance to learn Light Screen, but I skip it, and we get knocked out by the Magneton. This is ridiculous, so we need a better strategy here. Now at the same time, we can see that Sparky's finally fighting Blaine, and it seems to be going alright, but we're getting to pretty low health. And this just isn't looking super consistent at this point. But let's take another attempt. We get through Ninetales, we take down the Rapidash, we're all the way to Arcanine before we get knocked out. This is looking like it's possible, just not consistent in any way, shape, or form. But we're so far behind at this point, I think we just have to take attempts and try to get through. Here we get to the Arcanine again and fail. Which of these is going to finish this tough battle first? Well, now Sparky is getting some decent luck. It's on to the Arcanine with decent HP remaining. We paralyzed it, but we still got knocked out. No. And Pikachu is struggling so much against the Sand Slash. It's ridiculous. It's on 1 HP trying to get through. Now Sparky's getting stuck inside of a fire spin, but it's all the way back to Arcanine. We're trying to paralyze it, and we get knocked out with the Arcanine in red health. God, this is so ridiculous. But here Sparky is getting through Blaine again. It's on 5 HP remaining. We're all the way to Arcanine, but it uses Reflect twice, and we get through the fight finally. It's the same for both of these. We finished on 5 HP remaining against Blaine. But now Sparky can start to catch up. It can get back to where it needs to be and take down the final section of the game. We're gonna get a few extra levels though, because if Blaine was that hard, I expect Giovanni to be an absolute nightmare. So at the same time, we're still struggling against Rival 6 with Pikachu. This just isn't going well, and it's a matter of figuring out what the ranges are, really. I kept feeling like I was just getting really bad luck in this fight with our double teams. Like, how many times can we use double team and still get hit by everything? Not just the Swifts, but the Slashes, the Fury Swipes, get poisoned by Poison Sting. It was just kind of ridiculous at this point. But I decided to just grind it out instead of going and getting extra levels. Here, we finally made it to Cloyster again. We're going to try to take it down. It gets us in a clamp, but that's okay as long as we don't get knocked out. Badge boosts were enough there. And now we're using Clamp on Magneton. If we can clamp it, we can prevent it from hitting us, and that might just be enough. We set up another substitute on the Kadabra. Now we're using Clamp to whittle it down. And we're hoping to just use Surf to finish off the Flareon. We're all the way to Flareon. We still got the substitute. Now we go into Clamp because we had a PP remaining. And there we go. Finally, we're through Rival 6. We are getting on to the Elite Four and the champion with Pikachu. And I'm feeling like we're way ahead of the Meta Pikachu at this point. Sparky is really going to have to pick up the pace if he doesn't want to be forced to evolve and put into that daycare for eternity. But that's one of the things when it comes to meta strategies, and it's the thing that really pushes me away from them, is that when you're just trying to use the standard meta movesets in order to get through the game, when you have a weak Pokemon like a Pikachu, for example, it basically comes down to, can you one-hit KO the Pokemon that is going to one-hit KO you? The only benefit that our Pikachu has is that it outspeeds a lot of its threats. It can outspeed Pokemon like Sandslash. But the fact that we're going to be facing so many opponents that have smart AI makes this really hard. And it's at this point that I've just realized that I still haven't fought Erica with Sparky. So it's back to Erica's gym where all of these Pokemon are now easy one-shots with Body Slam, so we may as well just do that. And yeah, that's probably the strat, I guess, is just knock them all out and hope that it works. At the same time, over on Pikachu, I'm losing a little bit of time here because I've done something that's caused my game to forget the fact that I have a no wild Pokemon cheat in it. And I was digging through trying to figure out what had happened. I reset, I did all kinds of things, but we still have wild Pokemon. So we're going to lose a little bit of time here. It's going to be to the benefit of Sparky, but I decide, you know what, whatever, we're just going to deal with it. And hey, it's probably not going to cost us that much time. It's probably not even worth going out to get repels. When you play at 10 times speed, running away from Pokemon really just doesn't take that much time. So we could probably go either way on this. I'm sure it adds up over the course of an entire run, but here in this little section of the game, we'll just take it, and then we won't have to deal with wild Pokemon anymore once we get to the Elite Four. Now at this point, we can also see that Sparky is not just one-shotting all of Erica's Pokemon like I had hoped it would. We ran out of body slam PP, so I was using other moves. We nearly got knocked out though. It was nearly a disaster, but we managed to survive, and we're on to Viridian City and the Viridian City Gym. And really, this is just a section of the game where we're going to take some more easy fights because none of these trainers are actually that hard when you have Surf. As long as we can land our moves, we're going to be just fine against all of the lesser trainers in Giovanni's gym. And really, this is a place where it becomes kind of interesting because if you did this same run in Pokemon Red and Blue, Giovanni's not actually that scary. Because in Red and Blue, none of his Pokemon know ground type moves except for the Doug Trio. And you could do all of your setup on the Rhyhorn and then just crush his team from there because Pikachu is going to have badge boosts. Or it's going to already be able to just get everything else set up and maybe the Doug Trio uses a bad move. But it's much harder in Pokemon Yellow where you actually have to deal with the fact that every single Pokemon knows Earthquake. But Sparky's slowly making its way through the trainers and it's going to get to Giovanni very soon. But we can see at this exact same time, Pikachu is getting ready to take on Lorelei. Just needs to figure out which move to forget in order to learn Thunderbolt. So which move should we replace to get Thunderbolt? And it's not really a simple choice. I mean, we have Double Team, we have Mimic, we have Substitute. We can't forget Surf. So we have to replace one of these moves, and in the end, I decide that Substitute is the one that has to go. Double Team's too valuable, and Mimic is going to be very useful against some of the later Elite Four members. So here, the strategy is to start off by setting up our Double Teams on the Dugong, and then go into Thunderbolt to take it down, Thunderbolt on Cloyster, and now we're going to Mimic Amnesia from the Slowbro. Once we Mimic Amnesia, we're going to be able to basically one-shot the rest of her team, and there we go, the first Elite Four member is done, and we can pop down a save, heal up, and move on. At the same time, Sparky is making its way through Giovanni. We've still got 36 HP remaining, but we get knocked out by Nidoqueen. Let's see how many attempts this is gonna take. I mean, we fought pretty much all of the easy trainers we can. In this one, we're getting through Persian with 33 HP, Surf, one-shots the Nidoqueen, one-shots Nidoking, and then we one-shot Rhydon, so we got it through. It's done and on to Rival 6. At the same time, Pikachu's struggling a little bit against Bruno, so we're pretty happy we dropped down the save there. And in this case, it's just the fact that we keep taking like random digs and random hits even though we've got all our double teams set up. We've managed to get through to the Machamp this time, and finally it goes down. So time to drop down another quick save and on to Agatha. At the same time, Sparky is very over-leveled at this point, so it's making pretty quick work of Rival 6's team. And we're all the way to Kadabra, we're down to 1 HP and we get knocked out, but that looked pretty reasonable, pretty consistent. And it really just comes down to the fact that we are so over-leveled that we can one-shot pretty much everything except the Magneton, where we're going to have to go into some body slams. But even with Leech Seed, it doesn't matter. We one-shot Kadabra, and we nearly one-shot the Flareon. It was a 2-hit KO, but we got through. Now, it turns out that we actually didn't drop down a quick save after we beat Bruno, so we actually had to go back and fight him again, meaning that we're only finally just now getting back to Agatha. And Agatha is a lottery. We're at a low level. We're only at level 53 at this point, and we can take down Golbat easily with Thunderbolt, but we have to figure out how to get through the rest of our team. I decide to mimic Substitute from the first Gengar. Substitute will stop us from being hurt by Toxic and stop us from being confused. Then we can set up our badge boosts, we make our way through Arbok, and now it's Thunderbolts here on the Gengar. Let's knock it out. There we go. Agatha's done. So now we're going to heal up and make our way to Lance. And this is a decent time to talk about the fact that I know many people are probably going to be like, oh, it's cheating, you're saving between Elite Four members. But there's a reason why people don't save between Elite Four members in consistency runs, but we would save when we're doing luck-based runs. You see, we get one shot by the Gyarados here, and while I was saving between Elite Four members before, I decided to actually let myself be knocked out and just go back to the beginning at this point with my luck-based strategy. But this is nothing to do with me banning saving between Elite Four members for this one. It has everything to do with the fact that I just want to get more experience and get to a higher level so that I have a better chance against the champion and Lance later on. Because we can see that when we take on Bruno here for a second time, this is not going to be a consistent run, even at this point against Bruno. And if we're not consistent against Bruno, we're definitely going to struggle against the champion. So basically, whenever we save between Elite Four members, what we're actually doing is making subsequent attempts at the Elite Four more difficult on ourselves. Because we've already used our elixirs and we can't get them back. Or if we used a TM, we couldn't get it back. Bruno knocks us out here, and if we had used an elixir before Bruno, we wouldn't be able to use that item again. So we get this kind of weird situation where if we save between Elite Four members, then if we ever get knocked out and we want to go back and level up, we're actually going to have to level up even more than we normally would until our Pokemon is strong enough to be able to beat the members without restoring its PP between the battles. And that's what it really comes down to, is trying not to have to reach an even higher level to beat the game because you lost your elixirs. It's a strategy for controlling over leveling to a certain degree, but it's also a strategy for preventing the loss of items. And we saw in the Chansey video that even the Chansey that was trying to get the lowest level of consistency possible, meaning that it was 20 plus levels lower than the run that finally turned out to be very, very consistent, it was able to nearly sweep the entire Elite Four and the champion on the first attempt. It had to reset once on the champion, and that was it. So beating the Elite Four members one after the other and then beating the champion says absolutely nothing about consistency. Unless you're going to do that like 30 or 40 times in a row to prove that you're always going to be able to beat them, it can still be just incredibly luck-based. Often in cases against Agatha, since she's really trolly with her strats anyway, but even trainers like Lance that can get a critical hit with Hyper Beam and there you go. Or the champion, where you could get all the way to the very end and he knocks you out. Or the Sandslash gets a critical hit Earthquake, and even though you had everything else set up, you're done. So this is probably the biggest criticism that I hate, is you can't save between Elite Four members, otherwise you're not consistent. Come on. So this time we are taking down Agatha. We have gotten all the way to the final Gengar, and we are going to set up a substitute and just Thunderbolt it down and surf it down. She's using super potions, which is super trolly, but we finally get through. And it's back to Lance. So now we have to go ahead and decide what we're going to do. Are we going to restore PP? Yes. And if we start restoring PP, well, that means that we're pretty much just going to have to take it from here, because we're not going to have any PP restoring items remaining. At the same time, Sparky is going to the power plant in order to get another rare candy, because I'm very worried about whether or not I'm going to be able to beat the champion at my current level when I don't have access to double team or substitute as options to prevent damage. At the same time, Pikachu one-shots Gyarados with a Thunderbolt, and now we're trying to set up our double teams on the Dragonair, and we're going to use Thunderbolt to take the first Dragonair down. On the second Dragonair, we are going to mimic Ice Beam, and we take a Hyper Beam and get knocked out. So we reset, and it's actually back to where we last saved, because we didn't save in that entire section. So we're all the way back to Bruno and fighting against Agatha. But hopefully we can get the luck to get through this one. And if we do, well, then we're gonna try this again. This is really trolly, and it's what happens when you use luck-based strategies. You're gonna have a lot of situations just like this where you're gonna have to make decisions, and sometimes you're gonna have to reset, but it's better to get the PP restoring items back. And we can see that this massive string of mistakes in my Pikachu run, if this comes back to haunt me, we're gonna have to call the whole results of this run into question. But here I decide, here's the strategy. We're just gonna spam all of our rare candies right here and see if we can survive well enough to get through this battle now, 10 levels higher. So we're gonna have to restore all of our PP and all of our HP, and let's see if we can get this one to go. We're going to start off with a Thunderbolt to one-shot the Gyarados. Now we're setting up our double teams on the Dragonair. We tank a Hyper Beam. And now we're going to Thunderbolt the first Dragonair down, mimic Ice Beam. We take Wrap, that's okay. Ice Beam's a one-shot. It's a one-shot on Aerodactyl and a one-shot on Dragonite. We have made it to the champion. At the same time, Sparky is doing just fine, taking out Lorelei. Except on the final Lapras, we got confused, but we managed to take it down. And we can see all the way up at level 67, and we still have all of our rare candies available. This could be a case where it's about to catch up. If we struggle against the champion, it might just get there. But there is a big difference, because if we're doing meta for a Pikachu, well, in this case, we really can't save between Elite Four members. It's not that I don't want to save between Elite Four members. I always want to save between them. We can't. Because if we're not at a high enough level by the end to be able to take down the Sandslash, we are going to have to go and grind more levels. It's that simple. And if we lose all of our elixirs, we're not going to have a chance in this race. So we can see that Pikachu is struggling very, very hard against the Sandslash. It's not a one-hit KO with Surf. And I was thinking, okay, maybe I can try to get a critical hit. Maybe that's the way to get through this. If I get a crit with Surf, it should one-shot the Sandslash. But otherwise, we've got to set up double team, hope to not take hits, then try to get our setup off where we can knock it out with Surf and go through the rest of his team. Now at this point, with my meta Pikachu, I actually think that with my rare candies, I'm going to be at a high enough level to beat the champion. Because in my test run, I was able to do it at level 79. And we're at level 68 right now. If we used all of our rare candies and we level up in this fight against Lance, we should be right where we need to be in order to beat the game. But will this decision come back to haunt me? Because I'm basing this off of a test run, but in the real run, I'm not getting the luck that I got in that one. And here we get knocked out by a Hyper Beam from the Aerodactyl. At the same time, Pikachu is doing really well. It's all the way to Alakazam, and now it's made its way to Exeggutor. We mimic Leech Seed and we have Toxic. And folks who saw my clip last week know that the Toxic Leech Seed strat is definitely overpowered here, if we can just manage to get through that section. Here, at the same time, Sparky, I decided to go all the way back to the beginning. Maybe getting one or two more levels will make this consistent enough to catch up. Remember, it's the first to beat Mewtwo that wins. So here we are all the way to the Flareon on the champion with Pikachu. So we just need Leech Seed and Toxic to work. Come on. We're trying to use Surf and we finally take it down. So the champion has been beaten by Pikachu at 1 hour and 14 minutes. And Sparky is still coming up behind. It's just beaten Lorelei again. And we're going to have to just see if we can get those 1 or 2 extra levels, if it's going to be enough to be able to beat the game. We are taking on Bruno at this point. Surf plus Body Slam turns out to be enough. We take Bruno down. But it's not over yet. All we need to see is if Pikachu has actually wrapped this one up or not. Now, I reset with Pikachu because I was worried about losing time against wild Pokemon. I was trying to turn off the emulator, turn it back on, see if we could get it working properly again. And here, basically, Pikachu just has to get to Mewtwo and knock it out. So if we still have wild Pokemon, we might lose a little bit of time, but we're so far ahead at this point, it's probably fine to just take that little bit of time loss as long as we can knock out the Mewtwo. That's all that matters. Here, Sparky is once again fighting Lorelei and just trying to get those extra levels, because extra levels, extra stat XP is what it's all about at this point. We just need to be strong enough to get through the champion. Bruno here, we use Surf, we're going to use Thunder, Thunder again, Surf on the Onix, and hopefully we can knock out Machamp. There we go. So we are all the way back to Agatha. We still have some PP restoring items. Keep in mind, we got the max elixir from the power plant. So this is just going to be a matter of if we can get through and have enough PP remaining when we get to the champion. Here, Agatha is a little bit trolly, not going to lie. And it's just a fact that with our meta strategy, if we cannot consistently get through all of these trainers, then we probably don't have a shot at the champion, honestly. The champion is going to be the toughest of all of them, and especially with his Sand Slash. Now, Pikachu has finally made it to Mewtwo, and it turns out that we didn't heal, we didn't actually restore our PP, so I'm having to use items here. But the strategy is basically to try to set up Double Team and Toxic, and hopefully that will be enough to get through Mewtwo. The problem is that Mewtwo has this insane critical hit rate, and it's using moves like Psychic that our Pikachu just doesn't have the special to stand up to that. So at this level, if it hits us with Psychic, we're a one-hit KO. And if it hits us with a critical hit from Swift, it's a one-hit KO. And Double Team doesn't protect us from Swift, so we really have to get a lot of luck to get through this Mewtwo at this point. Here, Pikachu is struggling heavily against Agatha, and it has to start all over again, but that's just fine. We're doing this to level up at this point. We are so sure that we're not going to be able to get through this fight against Lance. Basically, if he's still one-shotting us with Hyper Beam, there's just no point. We just have to keep repeating against the previous trainers, get some more full restores, and hopefully we can finally get the luck while Pikachu is still struggling against Mewtwo. And it's pretty clear that even when we get the luck to get Toxic on Mewtwo, this is so difficult to get through Mewtwo at this point that we could be stuck here for a half an hour easily and give Sparky a chance to catch up. So here we can see that Pikachu has managed to poison the Mewtwo and is trying to set up, but it gets knocked out. Let's try it again and again and again. It's just going to be luck based at this point as Sparky starts another run from the beginning against the Elite Four. And it's just about trying to get levels for Sparky at this point, whereas Pikachu can really just focus on trying to get the luck in this one battle. I decided to mimic Recover in this one because with our badge boosts, we should be able to survive a hit. And we've got all of our double teams set up, so as long as it's not a critical hit Swift, and we finally get through that fight. So, Pikachu has finished with a time of 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 51 seconds. Now, I can hear some people saying, hey, this is clear proof that moves like Double Team, Substitute, Mimic, they need to be banned because these moves make it possible to beat the game at lower levels and faster than you would beat the game if you did it with the meta strategies. But I think you could also flip that around because much of the community places a very high premium on speed. And when it comes to speed in runs, well, you're gonna get the best speed by using the best strategy. The second thing that you see often in the community is an obsession with the level that you finish at, where lower level finishes are better. But you're never going to get the best level at the end if you only use meta strategies, because meta strategies are really about one-hit KOing tough opponents. That's it. Either you have to one-hit KO them or you have to be able to survive multiple hits from them. If you can't do either of those things, you're just not going to get through with a meta strategy. And that being said, it's pretty clear that Sparky can beat all of these trainers that it's going up against. It's just a matter of how consistent is it. And in this case, we're intentionally kind of sandbagging ourselves, trying to get more experience so that we can level up. But Agatha is really the one that you can be at a perfectly good level to beat Agatha and still lose a bunch of battles. In this one, we're finally getting through with decent luck, it looks like. And as long as we can manage to take down the final Gengar, we do, we're back to Lance. And we're really only a couple minutes behind the final time of Pikachu at this point. So maybe we can at least still get something respectable out of this. Here, we're going in against Lance, and on this one, and here we one-shot the Gyarados, we use a Thunderbolt followed by a Body Slam to take out the first Dragonair. One Body Slam crits and takes out the second Dragonair, one Thunderbolt takes out Aerodactyl. It takes 2 hits here on Dragonite, and we even got a Gen 1 miss. But we got through that. So it was clearly possible to get through this fight. We just ended up having to go back over and over and over again because meta? So now it's time to take on the champion, and basically the strategy is this. We're going to try to use Surf to one-shot the Sandslash. If we can one-shot the Sandslash, we probably have a decent chance against the rest of his team. So we use Surf. It's a one-hit KO, but it was a crit. Maybe that mattered. We one-hit the Alakazam with Body Slam. Now we're using Body Slam on Exeggutor, Body Slam here on the Magneton. Thunderbolt one-shots Cloyster, and now I decide to go into Body Slam. It works. We take out the Flareon. We probably could have done that several minutes earlier if we were just saving and resetting over and over and over again against Lance. So, yay, we beat the Elite Four all one after the other. It's consistent, right? Well, not really. We could have lost in any of those fights. But we'll take it, we'll move on, we'll go to fight Mewtwo. And how much longer is it going to take Sparky to beat Mewtwo compared to Pikachu? Pikachu took a really long time to get through Mewtwo because it was just getting one shot over and over again, but Sparky's at a much higher level. So even though the race is already decided, let's just hope that maybe Sparky can get this on the very first attempt and redeem itself a little bit in the hearts and minds of the viewers. Come on, Sparky, you got this, man. So we're just going to make our way through this little section. It's kind of ridiculous that it's like a maze in here, but you know, it's not too hard to get to Mewtwo at this point. And once we manage to get to Mewtwo, we're basically just going to be thinking about the strategy. I think that I'm going to try to paralyze it with Body Slam, and then hopefully between Paralysis, possibly getting some badge boosts with Agility, and then just going hard, trying to take it down will be enough. We're just going to have to see if it works. So here we go. Pikachu. Sparky, you have a chance. So Body Slam, and Psychic is not a one-hit KO at this point. We paralyze it. Now we're going for Thunderbolt. And there we go. First attempt victory against Mewtwo with Sparky, but we finished at 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 57 seconds. Over 5 minutes slower than our broken Pikachu. And that basically does it for this run, but the question still remains, how do you guys feel about this? I'd love to hear in the comments, but now we have to get to the real task at hand, which is the punishment and, of course, the Professor Oak fight to finish this one out. So first, let's pay a brief moment of respect to Sparky. Because he fought well, he did his best, but now he's become a Raichu, and he's forced to stay in the daycare for eternity. Godspeed, Sparky. We'll see you again someday. I promise. Okay, enough of that. It's time to see if Pikachu can stand up to the ultimate battle in this game, Professor Oak. Now, Professor Oak leads off with a Tauros, and it can one-hit KO us with Takedown, so I'm going to be trying to set up Double Team here. Once we get the Double Team set up, we can use Surf to take Tauros down. Next, he has an Exeggutor, so we're going to finish setting up our Double Teams here and use Toxic. And the idea is to mimic Stomp. Stomp will allow us to take down the Venusaur that's going to come up later in his team. Here, we use Surf on Arcanine, and now we are stomping this Venusaur down. Because it resists Toxic, we just have to use a physical attack to take it out. Now, Gyarados. We just stomp it repeatedly. We don't have any electric type moves, but that's fine. Professor Oak goes down, and Pikachu takes down this challenge. So there you have it, the Great Pikachu Race. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new here, like and subscribe. We're going to be coming back with some more race content just like this. Next time I'm thinking to do a Krabby that's going to race 0 DVs versus max DVs to see just how much the starting stats of our Pokemon actually matter. Anyway, that's coming next time. Thanks so much. See you in the next video. Later.